Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 157 of the It's the Pictures podcast. I'm your host today, Max Colville, and joining me is our first-time guest on the podcast, Matt St.Clair. Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Great to have you on the show. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a freelance film journalist who primarily does film reviews for the Film Experience and Awards Watch, and also my own Substack, Cinematic Words of a Chaotic Gemini. And I've also had bylines in places like Film Hounds, Polygon, Little White Lies, Crooked Marquee, wherever I may roam.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I've been on in some of those publications too. Some great places to work for. And thanks for sharing your Substack. We definitely we have a Substack as well for It's the Pictures, and I love that building the community through there too.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So the big thing since we last were on the air, John and I, we talked about the preview for the fall festivals, and with Matt here, I figured this now that we're past the fall festivals, we'll do a little bit of wrap up and maybe discuss some films that we're still excited to see, and some other happenings in the film world. Some of the big things that come out of these fall festivals are winners and losers, if you will. Obviously, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint the losers, but the winners are super easy. Some of the winners include the new Yorgos Lanthimos film, Poor Things, which won the Golden Lion, the highest honor from the Venice Film Festival. American Fiction, which won the TIFF People's Choice. What other films did you hear got really good buzz, Matt?
Well, the Boy and the Heron, the new Hayao Miyazaki film.
Oh yeah,
a potential animated feature winner, unless someone like Spider-Verse or Elemental takes that honor.
Yeah, I could see that.
The Holdovers, which I think is at least like a top 5 Best Picture contender, because it's even though it's not at the same level as Alexander Payne's earlier work, it's still very accessible, very easy to digest, crowd pleaser.
Yeah,
I think it could go pretty far this award season.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned those two, because certainly those were some of my highlights from TIFF that I'll gladly talk about later. Some of the films that played at TIFF in general just felt like, more so than normal, like they're almost being dropped at a festival because that's what you do. Certainly something like Taika Waititi's Next Goal Wins, which had received multiple delays. Definitely seems like a film that was just like, oh, let's give it a world premiere there, but not have too high expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it was going to be especially after its reviews at TIFF, that would just mainly just be a commercial thing, not an awards player.
Right. Yeah. Certainly it was a different TIFF. Like, Matt, was this like, what, have you been to TIFF before this time? Because I know I saw you there this year, but
yeah, I was there. I was there in person last year and a few years before, and the vibe was definitely the same. It's just even without the star, it's just the only difference is there weren't the same kind of starry red carpet premieres on account of the actor strike.
Right,
and also even the title. Like last year, they had much. Even the titles were much buzzier. Like you had Bros, Glass Onion, The Fabelmans, Woman Talking, and not that there weren't any big titles this year, but it did feel like the strikes had a major influence on TIFF's slate this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like it seemed like maybe Netflix signed up a bunch of their films with Venice, or and there were other films that certainly dropped the Telluride that didn't make the way to Toronto like usual. It's certainly I remember this year when I was there on Sunday, that like Sunday afternoon I had a real hard time of finding something to watch, which is just like crazy to think of, considering like how many films that TIFF programs and how exciting it is. But generally one of the quagmires is that they programmed the Venice and Telluride films to start like after that first weekend, so like not until Monday and Tuesday do you get some of the things traveling over. So it's a little light if the world premieres aren't super hot on that first weekend.
Yeah, and of course the first day of TIFF is always like con away from TIFF.
Right, exactly. Yeah, for at least for press on the ground at TIFF, most of the Cannes Film Festival films like just get programmed on that first Thursday.
Yeah, I remember like on my literally my each day on my first each time at my first day at my first day of press screenings at TIFF I've always started with I would always watch the Palme d'Or winner on those days. Like
right.
last year I my first in-person screening was Triangle of Sadness, and on my first in-person TIFF, one of my first screenings was Parasite.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was very much the same for me. I think for Triangle of Sadness, like maybe I saw it for a second showing or something, because I don't remember seeing it the first movie I saw at TIFF last year, but I definitely did see it while I was there.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I like that movie quite a bit. It's one of those movies like Tony Erdmann reminds me of it too. Is like movies that play really great in a packed theater house, but it's like how often are you going to see those movies in a packed house?
I don't know, yeah.
But it's funny to see it with that kind of audience, and really heightens the screening of the film.
Definitely.
But yeah, from what it looks like after these first fall festivals, it looks like films like Priscilla from A24, what else? The Poor Things, Yorgos Lanthimos,
All of Us Strangers.
Yeah, All of Us Strangers. That is Andrew High film, and those films look pretty strong right now coming out of the fall festival circuit. I think Maestro was a little more muted, right? Like I think people digged it, but
yeah, I mean I don't know what to do about that one. I mean, obviously, like Bradley Cooper is gonna be a contender. Carey Mulligan. But I mean, I don't know about that one. I mean, I've heard the vibe I'm getting is good, but the direction and the acting outweighs the screenplay.
Yeah, like maybe I'm more excited for May December, which is getting a second big win with opening New York Film Festival after playing at the Cannes Film Festival, and that one seems to have a lot of great momentum heading into its screening, and already has positive reviews.
Yeah, it did. It seemed like it had a more polarizing response at a con. But I mean, if anything, the actresses are certainly going to be ones to watch out for.
Yeah, that's Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. Yeah,
and I've heard Charles Melton.
Oh, all right. What was that?
Sorry, I was going to say, anyone who's seen Todd Haynes' previous films knows he's great with actresses. Yes,
absolutely. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to May, December myself. Hopefully, it's funny, I tend to watch like a lot of these big like Netflix movies like in theaters, and like I get less jazzed about seeing them when they are actually on Netflix. I guess like a good example was like El Conde, which came out, the new Pablo Larraín film that is now on the service. It played at Venice, and it's just like, I guess I'll get to that sometime, but like maybe I would have been more excited for it had it been like a big theatrical thing. Or
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes when I watch a movie on Netflix after it screens in theaters, I'll like by the time it's over, I'll be like, man, I wish I saw it in a theater.
right.
Like like All Quiet on the Western Front or
Right.
Power of the Dog.
Yeah.
God, I wish I saw those in a theater.
Yeah. No, I totally get it, and I agree. I mean, like, maybe that's why so many of these companies push us to see our screeners in the theaters, because it's just such a better experience. But I don't know. It's tough. Anyways, Matt, there was a big news that dropped just a few days ago and went into effect less than 24 hours ago, and that is the WGA has finally gotten its contract.
Yes.
Yes.
Finally.
Yeah. Apparently, it's a big victory for them. That they seem like a lot of people doubted that they'd get a lot of the gains and protections that they ended up getting, but it is quite a win for the writers.
Especially there's definitely quite a relief knowing that computers and AI are not gonna take their jobs and are not gonna steal their jobs from them. I mean, the personal imprint that a writer puts in a script is the AI just can't replicate the personal imprint that a human being puts on a screenplay.
Right, and certainly that was a big argument, or at least came out in a lot of the press for it, because I guess it was easy to understand for people that, like, well, writers don't want to be replaced by AI. So it was an easy thing for people to point to and be like, oh yeah, this is important that the writers get. There was a lot of other stuff that more nitty gritty details that affect the writers more than what maybe the public at large would care about. Like, the writers received like better minimums. There's going to be some streaming data transparency. So basically, how Disney Plus and Netflix and all those companies inflate their numbers and just throw out wild numbers of how many people viewed a show or movie in the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, they're still not going to share that with us, but apparently, the Writers Guild can request access to those numbers in order to receive some kind of payments or residuals regarding streaming releases.
Yeah, Netflix doesn't release how well their movies do in theaters, so this doesn't surprise me.
Right, and it's just crazy, right? Because it's just like they could throw out any number that they want, and no one can contest it either way. So it's just like, oh wow, but that sure sounds like a big number. I wonder how accurate it is.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy for the writers. I'm glad that they're back to work, and I'm sure maybe not the highest level. Those people could have probably held out much longer, but I'm sure for writers who maybe aren't, the writers on Succession or something, definitely will be happy to go back to work and earn a paycheck. And it's probably very difficult for them.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously we're still waiting for the actors to get their fair deal, and also once the actors go back to work, then everyone on the other guilds, like IAT, because that's another thing about the strikes is that they not only affect the writers and everyone else involved in the making of the making of a movie.
Sure, right, like cameramen and grip people and I don't know, makeup, hair. There's a lot that goes into making a movie, and those people just had to kind of be frozen. They weren't really with guild support or anything. They're just like, oh well, you're kind of on hold, and maybe we'll ask you back when production can resume.
Yeah, like, I'm sure the Writers Guild they didn't. I am sure they didn't want to go on strike, but they had to do something in order to get fair treatment.
Right. No, and I definitely. It's funny, Matt. Like this definitely feels like the year of the union because, like, as we speak, there's plenty more strikes going on. I read something like I'm big into video games as well, and I read that like the voice actors for video games are considering striking and getting better wages, and I've certainly heard that was a point of
Yeah,
contention in that industry.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I
Apparently, visual effects artists are looking to unionize.
yeah, I mean like uh people gotta get paid and keep their jobs and make a workable living because certainly uh everything's gone up in the last few years, so hopefully the people who are the creatives out there get the money that they need in order to survive to keep making great entertainment for us.
Yep.
And since the last time John and I recorded, I don't even know if Taylor Swift like had announced that she was doing her concert tour. I mean, like it's like absolutely bonkers that like it's definitely gonna be the biggest movie of the fall because like she's like
Yeah.
sold out like whole weekends of her concert film, and it's like
Uh,
it's like a $20 minimum ticket price, and it's just
yeah.
it's just a big deal, I guess. And like the studios were upset because AMC made this deal directly with Taylor Swift, and so it's
Yeah.
like places like Warner Brothers and Paramount and Sony are kind of getting like boxed out. They're like, well, we don't want to release product against Taylor Swift. It's like, what are we gonna do? And you've already seen some of that. Like Sony released their GameStop stock movie Dumb Money. It's already in theaters, but I don't know if you
Yeah.
would know that unless you cover this for a living, because I've seen zero promotion on that, or like I was like, oh, it's just kind of like, oh, they kind of depended on TIFF to like make waves for it, and I heard like out of the film festival that yeah, it was a pretty okay movie to see, but like it's just hanging out there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Swift movie is gonna like kind of I don't know. I don't know if it will change the industry. I guess like she certainly is a like a one of a kind star, right? She can like rock total movements with just her being around. But
Yeah. Like a
I don't
football
know.
game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know if it would be replicated by just about anybody, but it's certainly a interesting story. Well, what's your thoughts on it, Matt?
Oh, well, I know that the studios were a little PO'd about this sudden reveal because apparently, from what I've read, the studios they like to dialogue with each other and inform each other about when they're releasing their films, so that they know not to so that they know what to use as counter programming and whatnot.
Right, or in the case of like Barbie and Oppenheimer, to not back down and like create a mega day at the movie theaters.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a missed opportunity to. I don't think The Exorcist should have moved its release date. Like, for one, that was a perfect release.
Yeah,
An
Friday the
Exorcist,
13th.
an,
Yeah,
an Exorcist sequel released on Friday the 13th during spooky season.
yeah.
Perfect. And also, just think of the memes that would have created.
Right, but now it moved out of the way, and that's another movie that just like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think like it's like totally lost. Like you think like the buzz for like oh like years later they have Ellen Burstyn back in this in the Exorcist movie. It would be a big deal, and like I guess like the first Exorcist is celebrating its 50th anniversary. They just did a 4K UHD release of it that I got to talk about on the newsletter, and yeah, it just seemed like it was there to have, but I don't know. especially like this weekend. We didn't talk about it, but like I guess there's been a lot of like horror movies. I think like The Nun 2 came out, and like this weekend it's supposed to be like a Saw 10 or Saw
Yeah.
X, and then like next weekend is The
Yeah.
Exorcist. So
'Tis the season.
yeah,
But,
not typically movies for me. I mean, I like horror sometimes, but I don't think I'm gonna see any of these in the theater.
yeah, I mean, even as a fan of the original Exorcist, with the Exorcist really, I'm like, well, I mean, after what David Gordon Green did with his Halloween trilogy, that's not a confidence builder.
Right? Yeah,
I
that's what
have
I
to
was
say.
like. I was like, oh, maybe if he just left well enough alone and did the first Halloween, and people generally enjoyed that. I know I liked it,
Yeah.
but like the two sequels, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's David. He just loves horror movies about trauma.
Yeah.
He just loves that trauma.
All right. So our feature this week, both Matt and I, like as we've discussed, was that we went to the Toronto International Film Festival this year. We briefly talked about like what the mood was on the ground. If you want to see like some like capsule reviews of some of the movies that I saw during the festival, that's at the It's the Pictures Substack, and you can check those out there. Matt, what do you think? Should we just go through some of our favorites? I know, like, maybe you might have mentioned some at the beginning, but we can go into greater detail, or maybe talk about some of the misses. Maybe that would be entertaining as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, gladly talk. I'll gladly talk some of my favorites.
All right. So I don't know if it was one of your favorites, but certainly one of mine was the Alexander Payne, the Holdovers. And was this something you saw?
Yeah, it was actually my last movie of the fest.
All right, great. So we could talk about a little bit of detail. I mean, like, I don't think Matt and I will fully spoil the movies here, but we will be talking about them in some detail. So, like, if you don't want to like know anything about a certain movie, you can just like skip ahead a little bit. But yeah, this one feels like Alexander Payne going back to his roots a little bit. It's a movie that's deeply set in the early 70s, from not only the aesthetic design of the movie itself, but maybe like how it was shot and like the story and the marketing campaign. They definitely went the whole 9 yards with how they wanted to depict the feeling of this movie. And yeah, and it stars Paul Giamatti, who's coming back to motion pictures, I guess, after being on Billions for a zillion years, and he's teamed up once again with Payne, which I think the last time they worked together was Sideways, which it seems weird to say this, but I guess like I was like 17 or 18 when Sideways came out, and obviously it's too young to drink wine, but I was like, gosh, this movie makes you want to drink wine, and I love this movie, and I need to go to Napa Valley now. I've never been, but do you feel that way about Sideways? Or
Yeah, as a writer, I do fear that's not me in 10 to 15 years. But, I mean, if it is, I'm going to try at least avoid the Merlot.
Oh yeah, absolutely not the Merlot. So yeah, I loved Paul Giamatti in that movie, and that kind of made me a lifelong fan of his, even in some of his smaller roles, like as like a manager in the boxing movie Cinderella Man. I liked him in that too.
Also, a big fat liar.
Yeah.
That was kind of
Yeah.
my intro to him.
Oh, all right. But yeah, this is a role that he seems very comfortable in, like a grumpy, crotchety old professor of a boarding school for high school children, and it seems like he's been there forever. He's a hard ass. He doesn't like bend the rules for anybody, even when he's pressed by his principal and former pupil to let some of the rich kids off easily. He's a stickler for the rules. And this one winter vacation, he has gotten stuck with the duty of watching the students who can't go home for Christmas. And they tend to use the term that they're held over, meaning like they are staying at school over the winter holiday. And I guess for like some people, I don't know. I'm trying to think of my college experience. Like of course I lived close, so like I always went home. But like maybe it would have been hell to like have to stay at school over the holiday. I can't imagine that I would have ever wanted to do that. So it's even more difficult for these young men to stay at the school. What did you think about the setup, Matt?
Well, I mean, if that were me, I wouldn't want to be held up, and I wouldn't want to be held up for the winter either.
Right, especially with the teacher that nobody liked, right? It'd be one thing like if it was like the cool teacher who like kind of bend the rules and like you got to have fun, but this is very much like, oh, you're still at school, you should do homework and not really have a winter break.
Yeah, and also clearly Alexander Payne loves casting Paul Giamatti as neurotic professors.
Right.
Yeah, Paul. He's he's definitely doing a role that plays into his best serial comic skills.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say the real acting standout was Divine Joy Randolph.
Right. She's. You talk about her role a little bit.
I mean, she's like, that is like a quintessential scene-stealing performance where she's funny as. She steals funny as she steals a show with just a facial expression, but she also breaks your heart. And given how Divine Joy Randolph pretty much has a penchant for stealing the show and everything she's in, it's nice she might finally get some proper attention for her talents.
Right, and she in this movie she plays the head chef of the boarding school, and instead of going home for the holidays, she's kind of grieving the loss of her son in the Vietnam War and decides to stay on at the school and cook for the boys who are held over. And then another character, which it was funny. Like I thought that the movie was always going to be like a duo. So like when the movie starts and there's a lot of kids held over, I was like, oh, maybe it's a different kind of movie. But that changes pretty quickly, and there's only one boy left, and like what you thought or what my first thought upon seeing the trailer for this movie was kind of like, oh, then they're not gonna get along, and then they're gonna like Paul Giamatti's character is gonna come like a father figure for him or something like that, and that's not too far from what happens in this movie. But it's a joy getting there. I think there's a lot of great memorable scenes, and certainly a lot of the action takes place at the school, and that is a very fruitful environment for a lot of goofy hijinks to take place. Some of the more emotional beats take place outside the school as well. Yeah, but Matt, like I said, like even though I knew what this movie was doing, I was there for the ride. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to watch anyways. So
yeah,
I'm happy with what it decided to do.
yeah, I agree with you there. again, I thought the movie was like it's fine for what it is, and I mean it does. I mean it is a little. It does kind of lose momentum in the third act, but as simple as the story was, I was still with it.
Yeah, and I think that's good. Well, fine. Like maybe as the movie continues to play, and like obviously, I think the votes were like it was like the runner up for People's Choice at TIFF. So I think people connected with it pretty well. It's not a difficult movie to really latch on to. It kind of lends itself to that. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out and see how people react to it as it moves further along throughout the festival season and into the new year. But yeah, for me, it was one of out of like the 15 or so films I saw at TIFF. It was definitely in the top 5 that I saw. I really enjoyed it, and it's exactly what I wanted from Paul Giamatti and Alexander Payne. So I think it's coming out around the Thanksgiving holiday, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's definitely a Christmas movie through and through. Like if you haven't like caught if you haven't yeah if you haven't caught that through like the advertising, it's like it's a full on Christmas movie. But yeah, so I talked about one of the ones that I was really psyched about. Matt, why don't you talk about something that you were super excited about?
Well, one I really liked was a indie film, the British film Unicorns,
Oh, okay.
with Ben Hardy and Jason Patel, which was co-directed by Salih Al Hosseini, The Swimmers, which premiered at last year's TIFF. It's about Ben Hardy plays a mechanic who falls for a drag queen played by Jason Patel, and even after he realizes that Jason Patel's character is not a cisgender woman, he still goes on a sexual exploration.
Yeah, I think I saw something about that movie.
I would say it kind of broke my heart.
Oh, what was it about the performances? Were the performances played by cis men, or were they played by people of other genders?
Ben Hardy is a cis, and Jason Patel is from what I'm gathering, as I recall, he is the one who plays Jason Patel, the one who plays the drag queen. As I recall, I could be wrong, but he is cis.
Okay. Yeah. What really excited you about the film, other than the explorations of the characters? Was it the acting or um, the direction?
Well, I mean, just it's the direction and the direction, just how they capture the how it's in this day and age of largely sexless cinema. It's a film that gets horniness right.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a big argument these days for our listeners that don't know about it. It's just like I guess like the Gen Z crowd doesn't like sex in their films, or like that they like them like kind of like stoic. That's generalizing, right? But
yeah. It's just like through the way that the actors gaze at each other and the cinematography that sets the mood. It's I mean the film shows that sexiness is not just the act of sex. It's about longing and yearning, whether it's through body language or the way the characters look at each other. Just and Unicorns, I think, gets that right.
oh, cool. Do you know anything about its release, or if it was picked up by a distributor yet?
No. Last time I checked, it doesn't have a U.S. distributor yet. No.
All right, so but that's called Unicorns, and if you're interested in that, hopefully, studio will pick it up soon, and we'll be able to see it. I'm guessing another one that you saw was Miyazaki's the Boy and the
Boy
Heron.
and the Heron, which I respected more than I loved.
All right. Well, I'm gonna set it up because I'm a huge Miyazaki fan, and this was definitely one that I was going to talk about. Knowing that I wasn't going to get opening day tickets, and I guess I felt okay with that, knowing that Hayao Miyazaki was not going to come to TIFF. As if he was going to come, I would have like, I don't know, paid stupid money to go to the opening night. I guess Guillermo del Toro was there to present the film, and yeah, he was pretty excited at saying like repeating the proper mantra that animation is film, and we don't necessarily need to like put them in different brackets. And yeah, the movie itself, you know, I talked about it a little bit on the Untitled Movie podcast with Eric and the other Matt. You should check out that episode where we are on the ground at TIFF. But in some ways, the film does play like a greatest hits of Miyazaki's films past. There's certainly elements that we've seen in his other films, but this one is about a young boy who lost his mother in a fire, and he, like, I guess months later, he and his father move, and his father has taken a new bride in his late wife's younger sister. She's expecting, and the young boy kind of has to like deal with this transition into this new life of his. He's perhaps going to have a new mother, a new sibling, and new schoolmates, and it's quickly established that it's very difficult for him. And there's one thing, a kind of evil heron that kind of teases him with the prospect of seeing his mother once again. And our hero goes on to this journey to this magical world, and it takes a little while to get there, doesn't it, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just reveal this. Boy and the Heron is my first Miyazaki film.
Okay.
So maybe. I mean, but I am interested to see how this compares to the rest of his filmography.
Well, there's always a beginning, so I'm excited that you've seen his first, and I can tell you that there are films that I definitely like better than this. So if you decide to continue watching his movies, yeah, you'll find some gems. Obviously, a guy who's earned that kind of reputation over the years. You can tell he has a backlog of greatness. Yeah, as for me, like, I enjoyed the film. I'm eager to see it again. It's kind of too early to know like where I'd place it in my like Miyazaki rankings, which, you know, I'm kind of toying with like making a top 10 list when the film comes out in December from G Kids. I think it's like December 8th they're gonna release it. And then like I'm kind of toying with the idea of doing a list of some of my favorite Miyazaki's films for the newsletter. We'll see. There's some like really intriguing characters in this one. Like some evil characters that are just like weird and hilarious. I won't spoil what they are because it was really like a joy for me when I saw this movie. Some other things that like it does remind me a lot of like Castle in the Sky, but this like other world that he goes to, and why that's not unusual to Miyazaki films. Of course, Spirited Away includes another kind of fantasy world too. I don't know. It just felt a lot closer in spirit to Castle in the Sky for me. which is a great thing because I love that movie. It's funny, like a lot of people thought like, oh, let's call this is going to be his last film. But while we were on the ground in Toronto, they were like, oh no, he's not ready to retire this time, and like he might be working on something else. But we can only hope.
I respect that.
Yeah, we can only hope. I mean, like, just like a lot of these other great directors, he is in his early 80s. Film fans might want to check out a recent interview of Martin Scorsese doing the press rounds for Killers of the Flower Moon in a recent profile for GQ. He spent some time talking about his career and his twilight years, if you will, and like how he's very aware of his mortality as he grows older. It's kind of heartbreaking, but also like all of us go through this, or imagine all of us will. So in some ways it's very moving interview.
Yeah, I loved reading about just his even as he's faced with mortality, just his undying passion for cinema.
Right, and I mean, like, even if you found yourself over the years, like, maybe not particularly in love with Scorsese's films, and given that he's had so many, I find that a little difficult to imagine, but, yeah, if you haven't, you just know that his contributions to cinema is kind of, like, endless, and, it wouldn't be the place that it is today without his contributions.
Yeah, not just as a director, but also as a producer, as a curator. With his work on the Film Foundation.
Right. All right, Matt. Why don't we get one more film that you really enjoyed at this year's festival?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say another movie that follows the drag scene, which is Solo, which is a Canadian or Quebecois film.
Oh, okay.
About a drag performer who falls, a newer one who and gets into as his spotlight takes shape. Now he gets into it. I mean, it becomes disrupted by the sudden arrival of his absent opera singer mother, and also it becomes more complicated by his newfound relationship with said drag performer, as things take a toxic turn.
Yeah. So you said it's from Canada. Is it French or is it still an English language film?
French.
Okay.
Mainly French.
Let's see if I can find some more information on it.
Yeah, the lead actor is he's not a huge name yet, but his name is Theodore Pellerin, who was in Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, Boy Erased.
Oh, okay.
So he's, if he hasn't arrived yet, he's still on his way up.
Yeah, this looks kind of interesting. And I love the how much obviously the TIFF promotes Canadian films during the film festival. I remember I saw one last year. I can't remember the name of it exactly, but it stars the woman from the show that just aired, Reservation Dogs.
Devery Jacobs.
Yes. And yeah, that I think that they're a terrific actor, and that was a pretty good movie. And I think that one of the big things of this this year was being really intrigued by movies from other countries. Why there weren't a lot of big starry films because maybe they decided to skip this year. We know we talked last episode that the I call them the Zendaya movies because it was Challengers and Dune 2. Both decided to move into 24 because Zendaya wasn't available to promote them.
Yeah.
So there's certainly some movies that got pushed, but there was an opportunity to watch some other movies that maybe I wouldn't have watched otherwise, I imagine.
Yeah, as I know there was this TIFF. That's probably why this year's TIFF probably didn't feel as buzzy because there weren't as many Oscar frontrunners or whatnot. But at the same time, it was still an opportunity to maybe see some hidden gems that might take a while to get released here in the U.S. and a chance, and also maybe a chance to see the work of be introduced to an incoming filmmaker who might become the next Scorsese somewhere down the line. You don't know.
Right. Well, yeah. I don't know if she'll become the next Scorsese, but one of the movies that I enjoyed and one of the big themes of TIFF this year was like movies directed by actors, and maybe the one that got the most buzz was Woman of the Hour.
I missed that one.
Yeah, which was the Anna Kendrick film that was eventually bought by Netflix, and that was kind of fun. You know, it's a thriller, like, and a lot of people kind of compared it to Zodiac in that same frame. It's a tight little 90-minute movie, and Anna Kendrick does appear in it, but she shares the spotlight obviously with the killer, and the story is based on a true story where this serial killer decided that he'd appear on a TV game show called like the dating game, and try to win a date with the contestant of the show. And it's super creepy, as you imagine, but I thought it was a pretty entertaining movie. And why I think I was a little underwhelmed by TIFF on the whole this year. I think there was still some stuff worth seeing. I'm, of course, still excited about some of the stuff that I haven't seen yet. I think like what was it? Is it the Bike Riders, or what is it called for the Jeff Nichols film? I'm interested. Yeah, I want to see that from Telluride. It premiered. Even though it was like a little less big uproar, I'd still like to see Michael Mann's Ferrari. Of course, Killers of the Flower Moon is coming out in October now, so we're very close to that. So plenty of great movies to see. But unless, do you have anything else you want to wrap up with TIFF, or do you want to move on to what we've been watching and closing up?
I think I'm good.
Okay, so all right. So if you want to follow us, we're on X and on Blue Sky. It's the Pick Pod or It's the Pitcher, so you can find us at those two sites. We have a letterboxed. You can always email us at itsthepitchers@gmail.com. You can find some of our written reviews and features on the Substack. It's thepitchers.substack.com. And you can some of our reviews get shared on Rotten Tomatoes. You can find us there. Some of my work sometimes appears at sites like the playlist or Paste or Roger Ebert for the most part. Yeah, and Matt, can you remind people where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, sure. You can follow my Substacks, Cinematic Words of a Chaotic Gemini, which is the URL on MatthewSt.Clair.substack.com. And you can also follow me on X at FilmGuy619 and on Instagram, Matt.St.Clair92. And I am also at Blue Sky. My username is Matt St.Clair 92.
All right, awesome. Since you're the guest, basically what we do is we talk briefly about some movies that we've been watching that not necessarily for any particular reason, just maybe something that we've been interesting, whether it be TV or old movies or what have you. It just gives us an opportunity to talk about a little bit extra that wasn't our theme of the week. So Matt, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So this last night, I managed to fix a blind spot by watching Ghost.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
It was. I enjoyed it. It is. Yeah, the effects are pretty dated, and the climax did feel pretty rushed, but I was still pretty. I was still pretty taken by it.
The famous pottery making scene.
Oh yeah. since we talked about horniness done right. But really, like that, I think that's another great example. Like with because of the spark between the actors, the music choice, and even the pottery making as a form of foreplay. It's just, again, like that's what makes the scene so. I think that's what makes the scene so memorable.
Yeah.
Also, Whoopi Goldberg's performance.
Yeah, she's great in that.
I too would cry if I had to give up $4 million.
Yeah.
I felt. I mean, it was. I just love. I mean, it's probably the scene that won her the Oscar, but
right.
I felt her. She was laughing and crying at the same time. Also, Demi Moore is really good as well.
Yeah, it's just a really great cast for a movie. Actually, Matt, I saw this, like, they also did a Broadway version of this, and it's like, whenever they take like those 80s movies and like put them on Broadway, it doesn't turn out very well. The movie is definitely the way to watch it.
Yeah, I never saw the play.
All right. You got some other movies here?
Yeah, on a Sunday morning, I finally watched Casino as a form of prep for Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, it took me a long time to watch Casino too, despite like it feeling right in the wheelhouse of Scorsese. I don't know. I just always took a little longer to catch up with it.
Oh, it is a long movie.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty. I feel like it is pretty mid-tier Scorsese, and I'm sure it isn't helped by all the Goodfellas comparisons it gets, but even still, it's Scorsese doing what he does. Scorsese being the filmmaking machine that he is.
Right, even a mid-tier Scorsese is better than most, right?
Yeah, and plus Sharon Stone as Ginger. That's probably her best role yet.
Yeah, I really like. There's a scene where like her introduction in the movie, and like I remember like having to study that for a film class, and like how it's just really well done with her playing. I think it's like craps or some kind of game like that.
Yeah, and like the slow motion walk as she stares at Robert De Niro while Love Is Strange starts playing.
Right.
So
uh,
yeah,
and then
It's interesting because before it was confirmed that Lily Gladstone was going to campaign and lead for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Sharon Stone herself found herself in a similar debacle. The powers that be encouraged her to run in supporting, but she said, "No, I'm gonna go lead. I'm the female lead of the movie. It's it's where I belong." So even if she was told that her chances of winning were lower, she still went anyway.
yeah, and I mean, like again, like you, I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet, but it does very much seem like she is one of the main actors of that movie, right next to De Niro and DiCaprio. So
Yeah, I mean she has third billing. She does have third billing, so I think that's a pretty solid indicator. Oh,
all
and
right.
also, I this past week I finally watched Rebel Without a Cause.
Oh, okay.
That's a
That
good one.
Yeah, I think like that one had a 4K release recently. I think like I watched it earlier this year for the first time. That's the one where they like have the car race, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also where James Dean has that big "You're tearing me apart,"
Yeah. That big monologue.
and also James Dean just having more charisma on his pinky finger than a lot of humans had in their entire bodies.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I think like I think I have another one of his movies to watch that I never watched because like for some reason I didn't ever catch that James Dean wave and like and watch his films and obviously he didn't appear in that many, but um uh yeah, I remember we watching Rebel Without a Cause earlier this year and thought it was pretty entertaining.
Also, Sal Mineo, I thought he was excellent as well.
All right. For me, I went to the IMAX theater to catch the screening of Stop Making Sense. I didn't see it in Toronto. I saw it here in Rhode Island. Um, it it was kind of like a debacle when the movie was supposed to start because like we had tickets for 10, and like at 10 o'clock they put on this pre-show mat, and the pre-show runs for like 45 minutes.
Oh,
And so we're just like sitting there, like all of us in the audience for like 35 minutes, and we're like, why haven't you started the movie yet? It's like 10:30 at night. And thankfully they cut it short and started the movie. And yeah, the movie is an hour and a half. It's a remaster of a 40-year-old movie. So if you've seen the movie, you know what to expect. I mean, it looked great. It was blown up to a bigger format for IMAX, and apparently for wherever it was playing they enhanced the sound from an article that I read. So if you were seeing it in like a Dolby theater or an IMAX, the sound was calibrated for those two settings. um it was great, and I still don't really love concert films.
wow.
I think this is like the third or fourth time I've tried to watch Stop Making Sense, and like I fall asleep every time. Maybe that's just me. I just find like no excitement in a concert film, because like you know how it's gonna go, and people are having a good time. I will give it this though, like I like the music, and it's staged very well, and like they try their best to make the whole thing like different and entertaining for every song that they do. um and obviously it's a seminal concert film. And if you like the Talking Heads, of course, go see it. Get a chance to see it, and I'm sure they'll release a 4K disc of it um, soon enough. But yeah, it was a unique experience. And then I saw on the Apple screeners, I checked out Flora and Son, and that's a new movie from John Carney, who did Once and Sing Street, and another musical, Begin Again, which is better off forgotten. But this one, this one is another musical. I didn't think like he'd do another musical, at least in terms of like this one has like 3 or 4 songs in it. It's not straight wall to wall musical like Sing Street was, but this one is about a young mother who is raising a son, and the son is kind of difficult. Maybe most of it's his upbringing and his divorced parents. She tries to meet him halfway by like giving him a guitar. He's not really interested in a guitar. So she's like, well, what the hell? I'll try to learn. And so trying to learn leads her on a path to a YouTube channel where she finds a teacher in actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and she begins taking guitar lessons and trying to improve her life while also trying to connect with her son. And it's a cute movie. I think like it has like one of those feel good endings, so like maybe people were buzzing about it just because they felt good about themselves at the end of it, but it's definitely like not better than Once or Sing Street, so don't expect that.
I've never seen Once, but I do like Begin Again, and I love Sing Street.
Okay. You'll probably like this then. There's no reason not to. It's a cute movie, and
I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah. And so I think the movie is like going to be available on Apple TV Plus on Friday, so like the 29th of September. So very soon, that you'll be able to check it out for yourselves. All right, Matt. I think that just about does it for today. I want to thank you for coming on and being my guest on this episode.
Thanks for having me. I'd love to come on again.
All right, wonderful. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks. John and I will have a new episode for you, and as we get closer into the fall season of movies and all the excitement that pertains. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.